You're not going to like the first thing I'm about to tell you, but you need to hear it. The first hour of a nuclear event is the most confusing, misleading, and dangerously quiet slice of time you'll ever live through. Everyone imagines fireballs swallowing cities, mushroom clouds towering into the sky, people running in chaos. But here's the part nobody talks about. The moment you survive the initial blast radius, the world becomes still, eerily still, like the air itself is waiting to make its next move. And if you don't know what's coming in the next 60 minutes, that quiet can kill you just as efficiently as the explosion. Listen closely, because the first hour decides whether you walk out of this alive or whether the invisible physics of fallout decide your fate. Let's start with the shockwave, the one people think hits instantly. It doesn't. Light reaches you first, because of course it does, traveling faster than your brain can register. That blinding flash isn't meant for cinematic drama. It's the universe politely tapping you on the shoulder to say, you have 1 second to not look at this. If you're close enough that the flash burns your skin, you're in the thermal radiation zone and your body's reaction time becomes your first survival skill. Dropping immediately, literally folding into the smallest version of yourself, reduces exposed surface area. The physics are simple. Thermal radiation burns what it can see. Show it less of you. It's like playing hide and seek with a star that suddenly appeared way too close, then the blast wave hits. People always imagine it like wind, but it's more like the atmosphere being body checked into you by a giant you can't see. And here's where instinct betrays you. You'll want to look out a window to see what happened. Absolutely don't. Shockwaves turn glass into shrapnel with a grudge. Military field manuals have hammered this rule into generations of soldiers. Distance from windows is survival, not paranoia. Staying low behind something solid, concrete, a wall, even a heavy piece of furniture turns deadly projectiles into annoying noise. And it works for one straightforward reason. Blast pressure moves in a line until something interrupts it. You become much smaller in the story of the explosion when you're not in that line. Assuming you're alive after the shockwave, the next problem is deciding whether to stay put or run. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people get this part wrong. They see destruction, they smell burning materials, they hear distant screams or alarms, and their brain screams at them to flee. But fallout isn't something you outrun. Fallout is something you outwait. The largest, deadliest radioactive particles start landing 10 to 20 minutes after the detonation, depending on wind and altitude. That means your window to get indoors is brutally narrow. If you hesitate, if you wander outside trying to check on things, you'll be standing in the exact particle storm that survival instructors lose sleep over. So the moment you gather yourself, you get inside, a house, a school, a parking garage, the basement of a store. Nuclear survival isn't about finding the perfect bunker. It's about adding layers, literal layers, between you and the microscopic debris raining down. Radiation intensity follows a simple rule. It drops dramatically with distance and shielding. Doubling your distance from fallout cuts the dose sharply. Putting dense material between you and it, concrete, earth, books, even stacks of clothing, acts like a mute button for gamma rays. Think of it as turning down the volume of danger every time you add another barrier. Here's where the first hour gets even trickier. Communication dies, cell service collapses, towers fry, networks overload. The world goes technologically blind, and that silence convinces people to take risks they shouldn't. If you're inside, you stay there, even if the power's out, even if the building shakes, even if your brain is screaming at you to look outside, you don't, because you're not hiding from a monster, you're waiting for physics to calm down. Radiation drops fast. After 1 hour, it's about half of what it was. After 7 hours, it's around a tenth. That's why the clock becomes your lifeline. Inside that room or basement, your next challenge is air. Not because it's contaminated in the movie-style glowing green poison way, but because dust is the enemy. Fallout is basically dust with a bad attitude. Close doors, close windows, seal gaps if you can, but don't panic about perfect air tightness. You're trying to keep particulates out, not build a submarine. Even taping a towel against the bottom of a door reduces infiltration. It works for the same reason masks work. Particles obey simple rules of size, space, and air currents. Block the space, slow the current, and you cut exposure dramatically. People always ask whether they should take iodine in the first hour. Here's the thing. Potassium iodide protects one small part of the body, the thyroid, from one specific radioactive isotope, iodine 131. It's not magic, it's not a force field, and it only helps if taken before or very soon after exposure. What saves you far more reliably is shielding and time. The basics beat the supplements every day of the week. While you're in that improvised shelter, your brain will try to sabotage you with a million what-ifs. What if the building collapses? What if fire spreads? What if this place isn't strong enough? You need to understand something for your own survival. The first hour is about minimizing radiation exposure, not escaping danger. If the building isn't actively burning or crumbling, you stay. Leaving to find something better exposes you to the one threat you cannot negotiate with. And if you must move inside the building, say from an upper floor to a basement, do it quickly and without stepping outside. More mass above you equals more protection. Some people try to use cars as shelter. Don't. Cars are radiation sieves. Thin metal does almost nothing against gamma radiation. A car only helps if it gets you from point A to a real shelter within that tiny pre-fallout window. Otherwise, it's a fragile metal box with windows begging to fail. The only time you should be in a car is right after the blast if you are outside your fallout zone and need to get inside before the dust begins to fall. But if you're already within the danger zone, staying put is safer than driving blind into areas where the fallout might be thicker. Here's another part people underestimate. Fires, not firestorms, that's a different scale, but localized fires triggered by the thermal pulse. They burn buildings, cars, trees, but they don't necessarily spread the way Hollywood imagines. What matters for you is the smoke. Nuclear smoke can carry particles upward, and that means even indoors you want to avoid rooms with smoke infiltration. If you smell it, move deeper into the structure. Radiation isn't your only enemy. Secondary hazards waited in the confusion. As the hour ticks by, you'll notice something unsettling. The world outside gets strangely quiet. Wildlife hides. The sky might dim with dust. The power grid collapses one station at a time. Sirens fade, and still, the danger outside the walls is at its peak. This is the part where untrained survivors make fatal decisions. They interpret the silence as safety. It isn't. It's the world holding its breath while radioactive particles settle into every crevice, every gutter, every rooftop. This is why patience becomes a survival skill, not the glamorous kind, but the kind that saves more lives than heroics ever will. It's only near the end of the first hour that you take stock. You check water sources, not for radiation. Most municipal supplies are underground and shielded, but to ensure you have enough for the next several hours of sheltering. You check injuries because untreated wounds complicate radiation exposure. You check for ways to reinforce your spot using whatever's around: books, furniture, boxes, bags of soil. Every kilogram between you and outside is a gift. Every added layer buys you time. And finally, once you reach the 60-minute mark, something shifts. For the first time since the blast, the danger curve is bending down instead of up. Fallout is already losing potency. The world hasn't healed, but it's beginning to stabilize. That's when planning begins. Not escape, not travel, planning. Because what you do after this hour depends entirely on what the next few hours bring. But by surviving this first hour, by understanding what really happens in the invisible physics of a nuclear event, you've accomplished something most people never prepare for. And if you made it through that first hour, you can make it through what comes next.